Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. Israel has launched multiple airstrikes on the Gaza Strip for the third night in a row. The occupation regime says it pounded the besieged strip in response to the alleged rocket strikes from the besieged enclave. However, the Palestinian resistance group Hamas accused the Israeli government of escalating the situation to evade its internal crisis. Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Rajouri district. The youth was targeted during a so-called search operation in Manjakote area of the district. This comes a day after Islamabad released a dossier exposing the scale of Indian war crimes in the territory. North Korea says it has carried out a series of successful tests of a new long-range cruise missile over the weekend. The country's state media said the missiles under development for 2 years successfully hit targets 1,500 kilometers away. Responding, the US said the tests show Pyongyang's focus on developing military program that threatens its neighbors and international community. The UN Atomic Watchdog chief says an agreement with Iran reached yesterday has solved the most pressing issues between the two. Returning from a trip to Tehran, Rafael Grossi said the issues concerning verification and monitoring equipment in Iran have been resolved. Grossi struck the last-minute deal in Tehran before a meeting of agency's board of governors this week. Brazil has reported nearly 300 new COVID-19 deaths and more than 10,000 cases overnight. In Pakistan, 67 more people lost their lives to the virus, while over 2,900 tested positive in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed over 4.6 million lives and infected over 224 million people so far. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. We'll start from Israel now. Israel has launched multiple airstrikes on the Gaza Strip for the third night in a row. The occupation regime says it pounded the besieged strip in response to the alleged rocket strikes from the besieged enclave. Israeli regime continues to violate the ceasefire deal with the Hamas group that was reached in May, threatening the lives of innocent Palestinians. Palestinian media has quoted locals as saying that in the latest air raids, Israeli army launched 7 missiles at 3 different sites in Gaza. It said the strikes damaged civilian infrastructure in several parts of Beit Lahia, Rafah and Khan Yunis cities. Earlier, the Palestinian resistance group Hamas accused the Israeli government of escalating the situation to evade its internal crisis. The atrocities of the occupation regime continues in West Bank as well. The Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron city has been closed to the Muslims worshippers due to Jewish holidays. The occupation troops have also stormed the city's Bab al-Zahiyeh area and fired tear gas and stun grenades at residents, forcing the shutdown of local businesses. Meanwhile, Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Rajouri district. The youth was targeted during a so-called search operation in Manjakote area of the district. The occupying forces also launched search operation in parts of Thana Mandi. The operation was still going on till last reports were received. It comes a day after Islamabad released a dossier exposing the scale of Indian war crimes in the territory. In the past 6 months, the occupying forces conducted over 15,500 so-called search operations. Rights groups say the Indian forces have martyred over 400 Kashmiris since the region lost its autonomy in August 2019. Now, Qatar's Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani has called on the Taliban to involve all Afghan parties in national reconciliation. He said this while meeting Taliban's interim Prime Minister Mullah Hassan Akhund in Kabul. It is the highest level visit by an official since the US military withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Qatari Foreign Ministry said the two also discussed concerted efforts to combat terrorist organizations that threaten Afghanistan's stability. Meanwhile, the Taliban leadership thanked Doha for supporting the Afghan people in their critical time. They said the Doha Agreement was a landmark achievement. All sides should adhere to its implementation as well. Meanwhile, the UN will hold an aid conference in Geneva today that seeks to raise over $600 million to avert a looming humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Now, North Korea says it has carried out a series of successful tests of a new long-range cruise missile over the weekend. The country's state media said the missiles under development for 2 years successfully hit targets 1,500 kilometers away. Pyongyang hailed the missile as a strategic weapon of great significance that meets Kim Jong-un's call to strengthen country's military might. The US said the tests show Pyongyang's focus on developing military program that threatens its neighbors and international community. In a statement, the US Indo-Pacific Command said Washington's commitment to defending allies South Korea and Japan remains ironclad. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff also said that an in-depth analysis is underway in close cooperation with US intelligence on the development. Now, for more of this, we have with us Fahad Masood, international security analyst from Islamabad. Mr. Masood, thank you for joining us on Indus News Now. Fahad, tell us, how does North Korea's new long-range cruise missile different from its previous ones?
Well, as they have gone through the process, previously it was all to do with ballistic missiles. This is the first cruise missile that they've launched. It's a terrain-hugging, low-altitude, subsonic weapon system which is utilized to fly under the radar. The range, as explained or depicted by the government, is 1,500 kilometers, approximately 930 miles, which is decently long considering the peripheries of North Korea. South Korea being primary, and other than that, obviously, the American presence in Taiwan. So that comes well within range. The important aspect is, once again, the United Nations Security Council resolutions do not talk about the ballistic, the cruise missile program. They do have countered the ballistic missiles, but not the cruise missiles.
Right. Also, Fahad, tell us the temperature on the Korean peninsula is once again rising. What does this signify, and should the world be getting worried?
Well, worried may not be the word. Concerned, yes, because considering where we stand today, the next probable possible conflict or flashpoint can be the Asian pivot. Maybe the Taiwan Strait, may it be the North Korean push towards weaponization or nuclearization, for that matter. Under the present regime of Biden, United States has come up with this PACOM, which is the Indo-Pacific Command, relating to this region, where they make India as a part of their Pacific Command. So they're trying to negate China, as we call it, in the South China Sea, and instead of letting it become a global superpower, keep it to the regional superpower domain. So that is where flashpoints can occur, probability more than possibility.
Right. Also, Fahad, tell us, South Korea has said that Washington is committed to the dialogue process, but at the same time, Seoul and Washington conduct provocative military drills. How would you characterize this double-headed policy?
This process of communication stalled out in 2018, 2019. They're still trying to get back on track, but with Biden in place or in the seat, I think this will happen sooner than later, because the Democrats believe in communication, in getting together with a globalized world. So long story short, these provocative timelines may not be a huge issue if sanity prevails and the understanding of economics is kept on the track. So we're looking at greater communication, greater globalization with Biden in the seat.
Right, lastly, Fahad, tell us, do you believe that North Korea is willing to agree to a denuclearization deal at any cost?
National security remains paramount no matter which country you go to. So present time, Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang would not be willing to sacrifice its national security or the belief system that they are carrying. I certainly think communication is the way forward. Negotiation table has to open up. People have to communicate so that they're able to understand the other side of the picture. As we've talked before, there are two sides to every coin. So this understanding has to be done. May it be through bilateral, trilateral dialogues, may it be through the United Nations, whatever. The world cannot afford another nuclear, or for that matter, a third world war. So that's my take on it.
Absolutely, the world cannot take another war any place in the world. Now, Fahad Masood, international security analyst, thank you very much for talking to Indus News.
Pleasure being here.
Moving on now, the UN Atomic Watchdog's chief says an agreement with Iran reached yesterday, which has solved the most pressing issues between the two. Returning from a trip to Tehran, Rafael Grossi said the issues concerning verification and monitoring equipment in Iran have been resolved. He said the agreement was intended to give space for diplomacy so that wider solutions can be reached. Grossi struck the last-minute deal in Tehran before a meeting of agency's Board of Governors this week. The agreement has led to renewed hopes of fresh talks on a wider deal between Iran and the West. Now, Brazil has reported nearly 300 new COVID-19 deaths and more than 10,000 cases overnight. While globally the virus has claimed over 4.6 million lives and infected over 224 million people so far. Details in this report.
The mutating variants of the COVID-19 with deadlier effects are making the fight against pandemic more complicated with every passing day. In Brazil, after over a year of closure, public schools have started to reopen as online studies have been unavailable to students with no internet access. Meanwhile, protests erupted once again in the country's Sao Paulo city to demand the impeachment of Jair Bolsonaro over his handling of the pandemic. The British government has dropped plans to introduce vaccine passports for access into nightclubs and large events in England. In New Zealand, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has extended Auckland's lockdown to beat the Delta variant. In Australia's New South Wales state, vaccinations rate slowed as first dose coverage neared 80%. This comes as Australia expanded vaccination drive to include around 1 million children aged 12 to 15 after it secured additional supplies.
For those of you who choose not to be vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't expect to do everything that vaccinated people do, even when we hit 80%. And I want to make that very clear. Our strong message today from the public health team, from myself and the New South Wales government, is come forward and get vaccinated. Because all of us fear what will happen to those around us who aren't vaccinated, but also please think about our hospital staff.
In China's Fujian province, the coastal city of Puxin has classified two of its communities as high-risk areas following a fresh local outbreak of COVID-19. Meanwhile, South Africa announced 2 eased restrictions, including by shortening a nationwide curfew after a decline in infections.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 67 more people have died of coronavirus over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has reached 26,787. It said the positivity rate surged to 5.62% with nearly 3,000 infections reported overnight. Health officials said over 91,000 cases are still active, of which over 5,300 are critical. So far, coronavirus has infected more than 1.2 million people in the country, while more than 1.09 million have recovered. Pakistan has administered over 67 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to date. Now, Pakistan's ruling party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, has emerged as the largest party in Cantonment Board's elections with 58 seats. According to the unofficial results, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz has won 51 seats. PTI defeated the PMLN in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa by winning 16 of the 33 wards. But it was lagging far behind in Punjab with 25 seats against 47 secured by the PMLN. Moreover, the Election Commission has lauded all law enforcement agencies and Defence Ministry for peaceful conducting of the elections. Taking to Twitter, Planning Minister Asad Umar said the results show PTI is not only as the largest party but also the only national party. Meanwhile, PMLN leader Shehbaz Sharif thanked the people for expressing confidence in his party. More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Now, in Algeria, 18 people have died and 6 others are injured in a traffic accident in Algeria's province of Naama. The accident occurred when a semi-trailer truck collided with a small-sized passenger bus in the Al-Mashriya district. They said a probe into the source of the accident is underway. 9 Mali 5 soldiers have been killed in an ambush by militants in the central region. The military said an unidentified terrorist group ambushed the Messina Circle in the administrative subdivision of Mali's Ségou region. It said the military patrol reacted to the ambush, killing 3 attackers. They added 5 military vehicles were set on fire, while 3 of the militant vehicles were also destroyed. Now, in Spain, thousands of people have fled homes in 6 more Andalusian towns and villages as military was sent to put out fires raging close to a Costa del Sol resort. The wildfire has killed 1 emergency worker since it erupted in the mountainous Sierra Bermeja above Espetona region. For fire agencies, officials said the fire has an unusual power and strength and was advancing in several directions. Huge plumes of smoke rising above the mountains could be seen from miles away. The Environment Ministry said the fire covered more than 6,000 hectares of land. Authorities in Andalusia believe the fire may have been started deliberately. Now, in China, Shanghai has suspended flights, schools, subways and trains as it braces for Typhoon Chantu. The storm is expected to bring strong winds and heavy rain to coastal regions. The province of Xinjiang has also issued red alerts for flash floods in 9 districts. Port terminals in Shanghai regions have suspended containers, import and export services till further notice. Official forecasts say Jiangsu province, Shanghai and Xinjiang may receive up to 280 millimeters of rainfall. The typhoon disrupted transport and caused some power outages in Taiwan over the weekend. Hundreds of paddleboard enthusiasts brightened the waters of Moscow's rowing canal with a flashy masquerade to enjoy last warm days of this autumn. Let's find out more in this report.
The participants of Moscow's boat festival showed off their costumes for fun and took part in a friendly race. Residents of Moscow showcased their passion for the games despite COVID-19 pandemic in the country.
We are runners, we like to run. Running is sport, running is life. But as Moscow Marathon got cancelled yesterday, we want to support the organizers of Moscow Marathon and show that we stand for it being held. These are our t-shirts from all the marathons we ran, we run and we will run.
Paddleboarding became increasingly popular in central Russia over recent years. Despite no seas nearby, enthusiasts sail on many lakes, rivers, and cities' water ponds. Many people like to participate in such activities to lessen the stress during the coronavirus pandemic.
Spain's ugliest tomato award, celebrated every year in northern Tetela, fills local farmers with joy. More about this unique competition in this report.
Dozens of ugly tomatoes competed for this year's award, decided by a popular jury, marking the 14th edition of the competition. The winners, who receive an Iberian ham as a prize, have called it a matter of luck. The competition also includes testing of quality and flavor of normal tomatoes. Participants said they got the ugly tomatoes by luck, while others blamed the failed pollination of bees for the results.
They come out ugly because we have some bees that germinated. They take the pollen from one place to the other, but in this case, something went wrong.
The type of tomato, known as ugly tomato of Tudela, is an old tomato of the Marmanda variety that is grown mainly in Navarra region.
We have a vegetable garden, but this year we didn't plant the ugly variety. We have planted other types of tomatoes, but we wanted to come because we come every year, so a friend gave us this tomato.
Some of this variety ends up twisted rather than round and smooth.
Now, Asia-Pacific markets are trading mixed as investors remain cautious over imposition of curbs due to the rising COVID-19 cases. Stocks in mainland China, Japan's Nikkei 225 and Australia's ASX 200 edged up marginally, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng tumbled over 2%. Sales Kospi is trading flat. Sports news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world with Hira Mustafa.
Welcome to the weather forecast. We're going to start with Abu Dhabi, where weather is expected to be extremely hot with temperatures rising to 40 degrees Celsius. While in Amsterdam, temperatures are steady at 19 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy weather accompanied by early shower. If we head to Ankara, there's clear sunny weather with temperatures at 28 degrees Celsius. Moving down under to Auckland, the temperature is chilly at 17 degrees Celsius with partly sunny weather in forecast. Now, if you're traveling to Bangkok, there will be an expected thunderstorm with temperatures around 33 degrees Celsius. In Beijing, temperatures are at 29 degrees Celsius accompanied with layer of clouds floating in the sky. While Beirut will experience sunny weather today with temperatures at 31 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, Burnlers will experience temperatures at 19 degrees Celsius accompanied with thin layer of clouds. Heading to Cairo, the sun will be out with temperatures at 38 degrees Celsius. Down under in Canberra, the temperatures are at 12 degrees Celsius with clouds veiling the sun. In Islamabad, temperatures are at 32 degrees Celsius along with clear sunny sky. While in Jakarta, the temperatures are steady at 33 degrees Celsius along with thunderstorm. That's all for now. Back to you.
Thank you, Hira, for the weather updates. And now, with that, we come to the end of this news bulletin. For the latest updates, viewers, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.